Hello everybody and welcome to another board game discussion video. I hope that you're all staying safe, and on that note, today's topic is all about social distancing and board games. As you all know, COVID-19 is still spreading all across the world and we are in the middle of a pandemic crisis. Many people are still in lockdown and quarantine, meaning that we're not allowed to leave our homes except for very specific reasons. We're not allowed to have social gatherings that are above a certain number of people. Bars, restaurants, and all sorts of other types of businesses are closed down for the foreseeable future, and it has just turned our lives completely upside down. It has changed the way that we interact with schools, with work, with our homes, with our free time, how much free time we have, and pretty much every single aspect of our lives. It is pretty maddening for a lot of people I know. And essentially what I wanted to do is take a little bit of a different path from what most people are doing about this, where a lot of people are saying, here are some great games that you can play while social distancing and some of that other kind of stuff. What I wanted to do instead was discuss a little bit more about the heart and importance of this matter, and why not only social distancing is important, but also why board games as a whole can be very important. So effectively, I wanted to talk about two major things. First off is the reasoning, the importance aspect. Why is social distancing important, and how is it that board games themselves can become important in terms of a crisis like this? Secondly, I wanted to talk about mechanisms or methods that you can use to still play games while you are social distancing. There's a lot of options out there, and I wanted to just go through a handful of them so that you guys can have some things to do. But that said, as always, you guys know I love to hear from you, and I really want to. I want to know, what have your experiences been while you're in quarantine? What are you upset about? What do you like? What do you not like? I mean, all of that kind of stuff. It's an absolutely devastating disease. This is a horrible pandemic, and the least that we can do is have a little bit of a place to vent and talk about something that is reasonably fun, like board games. So please let me know anything and everything you want in the comments below. But with that, I'm going to jump into my main things, starting off with the reasoning. Like I said, this is all about social distancing, which is a concept stating that you need to stay a certain amount of distance away from people. Here in the US, they say about 6 feet. That's about 2 meters for those of you who use the normal system. But the thing is that the reasoning behind it is COVID-19 is a coronavirus that can travel in liquid droplets. In other words, when you cough or sneeze, it is inside of those drops. It's not an airborne virus. It's not able to fly around on its own, but the idea being that those little droplets can fly approximately 6 feet. So if you're that distance away, then even if somebody coughs or sneezes, then you'll be okay. On top of that, it is now, here in the US at least, recommended that we wear masks whenever we go out, because again, that will block those liquid droplets from getting inside of you, and arguably more importantly, from you potentially infecting other people. One of the reasons for this precaution is that you might be infected but be asymptomatic. In other words, you feel fine, but you still have the virus inside of you. If that happens, you can potentially infect somebody else, and then they'll infect others and others, and on and on and on. It's a really nasty system, or system epidemiology. It's a very nasty thing to be watching live. But that's essentially the reasoning behind this and why we have to social distance. But that said, what is it that we can do about it to sort of maintain some kind of normalcy? Like I said, this has really turned our lives upside down in terms of how we work and interact with our family, our world, everything around us. It's absolutely insane. So what can we do to maintain some semblance of, this is what my life can be like, or what my life should be like? Well, thankfully, a lot of schools and businesses are able to have people work and go to classes online. So that's great, because it means that students and workers are able to still do what they need to do, and they're still able to get paid. That said, not everybody is able to. Here in the US, it's been a huge problem, but we don't want to go too deep into all of it. Essentially, what it comes down to is we need something that reminds us of something good and something fun. And board games are a great way to do that. If you live on your own, then potentially you can get a few solo board games that you can play. If you live with family or roommates or whatever it happens to be, and you've got some board games, it's a great way that you can interact with one another, because if you're living in the same physical space, you really can't do the social distancing thing. And at best, you would all be quarantined together and stuck inside for several weeks anyway, so you may as well play some board games. On top of that, board games are a good way to sort of escape from reality for a little bit. Not in the context of you are escaping the bad thing because it's the only way that you can feel happy, but more along the lines of board games are a good way that we can remind ourselves that there is good out there and there is a light at the end of this very bleak and dark tunnel. It will take a long time to get there, but we can get there eventually. Now, maybe I'm putting board games at a very, very high pedestal, but the fact is that the WHO even has recommended that people play video games as a mechanism for social interaction, as well as basically just not going completely crazy with cabin fever. That's why all of the Nintendo Switches have been sold out everywhere. But for me personally, and for this video, we'll talk about board games, which brings us right into mechanisms and methods. I'm sure that you guys have seen a lot of different ways to play board games during the lockdown, during quarantine, and I'm just sort of going to rehash those a little bit. First and foremost is the very obvious thing of you can play inside the house, you can play solo games, you can play with roommates, friends, family, whoever is locked down with you, you can play games with them. That's totally fine because you're already in the same house together. There's no real reason to social distance at that point. The other great thing that we have are apps. So you've got Steam, you've got the board game apps that are on like phone apps, Android and iPhone, iPad, all of those kinds of things that you can download and play. So Days of Wonder is really great about having a bunch of their games available on as apps so that you can just play whenever you want. Some of my favorite games are on there. You've also got things like Tabletop Simulator and a few other different things where you have sort of a system that includes a bunch of different games that you can go in and play. You've got other mechanisms that include the games themselves as well. But then you'll also have websites where you can go and play. So one of the biggest and most popular ones for that is Board Game Arena. You can also go to Vassal, and there's a handful of others, but those are the two major ones that I'm familiar with and that I've used. They're both great because you can access them for free, unlike something like Tabletop Simulator or any of the apps, all of which you have to pay for, at least to some extent. And that means that it's a lot better in that sense. You can use audio or video from something like Skype or Google Hangouts or Zoom or Discord or any number of these interactive apps. FaceTime, I guess, is Mac's version of all of these things that they've got. You could even use Zoom, since everything is doing Zoom now. And that way you can actually talk with your fellow players, your friends, your family, whoever it is that you're playing with, so that you can still get that discussion, that interaction, that human connection that is really important and very critical, especially in a crisis like this. And all of those thankfully can allow us to do that. And beyond that even, you can still play a physical game across an internet connection. I have seen several things, especially on Instagram, where people are playing things like Pandemic or whatever. They essentially have a camera pointed at the board so that people on the other side can say, oh, I'm going to move here, here, and here. There was another thing where somebody shared an iPad app that they were playing with other people. It was a co-op game. I think that was Pandemic as well, where essentially they had like a Zoom call or a Hangouts call or whatever it was, and the screen that was sharing was the iPad app, so everybody could see what was going on. So you can still play collaboratively like that. It does still work. Competitively, it doesn't work so well because you tend to have like shared cards or some other kind of shared resource, and it's essentially impossible for the person on the other side of the phone or the other side of the screen to instruct whoever physically has the stuff in such a way that it would make sense and it would be reasonable to do. But that said, again, there are a lot of options, thankfully, that will allow us to do all of these, and most of them are free to access, free to use. The thing is that Board Game Arena especially has been hit with so much traffic lately that has been crashing, so you'd probably be better off going and getting like some Steam games and things like that. Hopefully you've got friends and family who are a part of that as well. Again, you can get in touch with people through Skype, Hangouts, FaceTime, Zoom, any of these chat apps so that you can still have the audio and or video, whatever it is that you want, and still have that human connection. Again, when it comes to the reasoning, this is a great way that we can maintain these social relationships without having to be physically present. Being in a world and being in a time period where this type of thing is possible is wonderful. Like, you think about the Spanish flu back in the 19-teens, late 19-teens, around there was no way that people could do this. They barely even knew how the virus was spreading. They couldn't test for it. They couldn't figure out what was going on. At least, even though here in the US we have bungled the testing quite dramatically and ridiculously, we still know how the virus spreads, so we are still able to reduce the possibility of infection. Not eliminate it, but at least reduce it. And to help save your friends and loved ones, you can still talk to them, but do so over the internet. Do so in a nice little Discord chat while you guys play World of Warcraft together, or while you play a game of Pandemic or Twilight Struggle, or, you know, Ticket to Ride or Evolution, or any number of these things that are all available for you to get. And again, in Board Game Arena especially, they have a ridiculous number of games available that you can play for free in a browser. So you really don't even have to download anything. Everything is there, set up for you, ready to go. Tabletop Simulator has become very popular because you can download a bunch of different games for it, including chess, Cosmic Encounter, my personal favorite, Scythe, and just a whole bunch of other really wonderful hobby games. It's a great tool. It's a wonderful way to keep in touch, a wonderful way to stay at least somewhat sane in these absolutely insane times. But with that, it's enough rambling for me. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Once again, please, everybody, stay safe, stay inside as much as you possibly can. Only go out when you absolutely have to. If you've got the materials available, wear masks if you do have to go out, because it's not only about you, it's about everybody else around you as well. So please stay safe, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to keep gaming. As always, again, if you have anything to say, please say anything and everything in the comments below, because you know that I love to hear everything from you guys, especially now. If there's anything you want to get on your chest or off your chest, feel free, just stick it in those comments, because I know, again, we are all frustrated. I'm going to be putting all of the links to the various tools, apps, websites, and everything in the description, so you guys can check them out for yourself. And speaking of which, if you have not done so already, please take a look at my various social media pages as well. I try to be at least reasonably active, but basically you can interact with myself and my channel in a bunch of other additional ways besides just commenting on the YouTube stuffs. But with that, thank you so much again for watching. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Once again, please stay safe, and as much as you can, enjoy your time. Still keep on gaming, and regardless, I will see you next time.